Good morning, all. Um, Welcome to the Microsoft Azure webinar. And our senior pre-sales consultant, Shoaib, will start the presentation in a while. Shoaib, handing it over.
Thanks, Junaid. Hi, guys. Good morning, all. My name is Shoaib, and today we're gonna start a webinar, which is for Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. So basically, this is a course which Microsoft has done a mandate for all the engineers, irrespective to sales or pre-sales part. So we're gonna deliver a session, and it's gonna be an hour and a half session, which gonna talk about. We will make you ready. I'll make you ready for appearing for Microsoft Azure Fundamental Certification. So I hope you all are able to see my screen. So let's quickly start, and then with time, I'll give you more idea about it. So the exam course is AZ 900, which is Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. And uh, so my name is Shoaib Kutsi, as discussed. I'm an Azure Solution Architect. I'm a Microsoft Certified Trainer, and I'm currently working as a pre-sales consultant for Redington Gulf. And I have over 10 plus years of experience. And I was working with previous to Redington, I was working with Microsoft, and after that, I was working with Citrix India, and then I joined Redington as a pre-sales consultant. So about this course will give you the information about. So this course is basically designed for someone who's just starting into cloud, getting into cloud, who want to know what is Azure, what are the concepts of cloud, what all services are available in Azure, and then it will go to a bit advanced level where we will deep dive a bit into services, how the pricing model work, how the security works, and then we will wrap it up. Uh, and then after completing this course, you can appear for an exam which is AZ 900, and there is no prerequisite for this course. So as discussed, even if you are from sales or if you are from technical background, this course is a mandate for you if you going to enter a world of cloud. And it is not Azure specific as well. Of course, when we go to the later module, so it will be covered in 4 modules. In the last 2 modules will be specific to Azure, but even if you want to understand what is cloud, this course is gonna be helpful for you. And as discussed, the reason why Microsoft has done this certification for every mandate as everyone for sales and for technical is because before cloud, the sales was only focused into sales. They will go to the customer. For example, if a customer is looking out for a SQL license or a Windows Server license, the sales team will go, he'll talk to the customer, he will give the presentation, he'll give the quote, and then he will finalize the order. And the technical guy will only come into picture if the customer has some technical requirement. But in the cloud era, things have changed. You need to be a techno commercial guy, so the sales guy need to understand technology, need to talk technology. Of course, it's not to a deep level where we expect the salespeople to go ahead and do the deployment, but they should at least be aware about the services that are available in Azure that will replace their on-premises environment. Okay, so the agenda would be there will be 4 modules: cloud concepts, where we will discuss the cloud basic concepts, what is IaaS, PaaS, SaaS. Then we will go to core Azure services that are available in Azure. A lot of customers ask about security, privacy, compliance, trust. If my data is on cloud, how secure my data is, what are the compliance of Microsoft, how can I trust Microsoft. So this is very important for everyone to give a reference to the customer in order to make sure that the customer is comfortable, all the questions are answered. And then at the end, we'll go to the pricing and the support model that is available. Okay, so while doing the certifications, so this is the weightage. The cloud concepts cover 15 to 20%. Services cover the most, which is 30 to 35%, and then we have security and compliance, and then we have the pricing model. So the exam will be of 1,000 marks, out of which 700 will be a passing, and the duration for the exams is going to be 120 minutes. But this is a straightforward exam with no practicals, no demos as well. It's going to be an optional question, and then you need to choose one of those, or there may be multiple choice answer to it. Let's get started. So I'll quickly go to my first module, which is of cloud concepts. So guys, I'll just quickly unshare this and I'll quickly share my first module. Okay, I hope you're able to see my screen. So what we're going to learn in this module is we need to describe an understanding of cloud services and the benefits of cloud services. We need to understand the key terms that we'll encounter when you're working with the cloud services. We need to understand what is public, private, and hybrid cloud, and then we will understand what is IaaS. This is very basic, but very important for anyone to enter a cloud journey, that they need to talk about the terminology and they should be able to answer the question. So cloud computing, I mean, what is the benefit of cloud computing? So cloud is not a new technology or a new services that is available. Cloud was available since when computer era started, but the name have been changed in the recent terms. So not as a web cloud. Imagine like we had Hotmails and Gmail and Yahoo since decades, whereas in your emails are hosted on cloud. But apart from that, even the services are not new. Example, infrastructure as a service. Whereas in companies like Amazon and Microsoft and Google, they provide customers their infrastructure and the customers spin the workload and they use it. These sort of companies were available in early 70s, early 80s, where the computer era started. Every area we had small local service provider. They had their data center and they were asking customers to host their environment in their data center and pay on monthly or yearly basis. Like for example, if you want me to give, in UAE we had Etisalat, we have BIOS, we have Do. But now since 2004, we have big players like Amazon and Microsoft and Google entering the space of cloud. And then so in the later version, it started with Amazon, whereas in they had Amazon.com, and in the span of Black Friday sale, they used to pump in a lot of virtual machines because there was a lot of load on the website. And after the sale is gone, they just need to unplug and keep the servers. That's where the idea came up, that in the time when we are not using our servers, let's outsource to someone and let's get some revenue out of it. So the compute power, such as Linux server or web application, you can just scale up in minutes. Storage, we have files, we have databases, we have blob. We'll talk about that in detail. Then we have network. Just as your on-premises network, we have secure connections on cloud as well, where we create VNet, we create subnet, which we'll go in detail in our next demos. And then we can use the power of analytics and the IoT hubs and the data warehousing, the services like that. So the key concepts, high availability. High availability is not very new term for everyone. Everyone is aware about high availability, but for achieving high availability, it's very difficult because of the infrastructure that you invest in order to achieve high availability. That was very difficult on premises, which have been made very easier on cloud. So high availability, it's like when you have given a virtual machine to a customer, or if you have a website, it should be highly available. There should not be any downtime incurred in this highly available time. So how you can achieve high availability? You can achieve high availability by spinning up more than one virtual machines in an availability zone. Whereas when one virtual machine goes down, you have another virtual machines which give you high availability. Scalability, in cloud, you can scale up and scale down anytime. Like imagine if I'm using a virtual machine which is of 4 core 16 GB RAM, and suddenly there is a lot of workload on my virtual machine. I can go from 4 core to 16 core to 64 core anytime I can scale up and scale down, and we just need a reboot. There won't be any changes in IP, there won't be any changes in storage. Global reach, we are aware about this, as Azure has data center in more than 54 regions now. Sitting in UAE, I can spin up the virtual machine in Europe, in US, in India, anywhere. So with the same console, I can get a global reach within seconds. And then agility, it's a very agile solution that has been offered. Disaster recovery, it's one of the core services that we need to focus on today's world. Like, let me give you an example. Imagine Redington.com. We have a CloudCox website where all the partners come in and load their order. And imagine the CloudCox website is down. In that case, imagine my CloudCox website is down. In that case, if my partner need to load any urgent order, they will not wait for Redington. They might go to a competitor, or it may be a very bad experience for a partner. So in that case, every company needs a DR solution. Like the other day, you heard about it. YouTube was down, Facebook was down, WhatsApp was down for 30 minutes a month back. So every company needs a DR, either if it's an SMB or either it's an enterprise customer. But achieving a DR was very difficult, because imagine I want a DR for my customers in Dubai, then I need to take a data center location in Abu Dhabi. I need to take a space, I need to spin up for virtual machines, licenses, backup, my security, and it was very expensive game for me. So SMBs, especially, they were not able to afford this cost. Where cloud comes into picture, in Azure, the DR services are relatively very cheap and very easy. And this is the first step, an easy step. If a customer is not aware about cloud and he's just starting into cloud, DR is the best option that you can pitch to convert the customer. Fault tolerance, of course, if there is any fault, it should be able to tolerate, where it should, dump, or it should spin up the other set of virtual machines. Where one is faulty, the other set of virtual machines should be up, should be able to provide all the availability services. Elasticity, we have customer latency capability. Like Azure has websites where you can check the latency, which region has the least latency for you, and you can spin up the virtual machines. You can predict your cost. There are tools like Cloudin or Azure Cost Management, or we have third-party tools like Cloud Health or Cloud Checker, which can predict the cost of the coming month or coming year based on what you have used. It can give you a resource cost as per services. It can give you user levels cost. It can give you department level cost and all of the details. And then, of course, security is a very major concept or very major concern that we will talk about in this session. Okay, we will deep dive in all of these topics as time comes in. So, economics of scale. Its scalability was indeed very important, because imagine we have an organization like an e-commerce, or we have a financial sector where the workloads only go high on a month end, on a weekend, or on a financial end, and in that time, scaling up the virtual machines was very difficult because of the resource constraint, which have been made very easy in Azure. So virtually or theoretically, Microsoft says that they have enough space in the data center, so the customer can scale up and scale down the virtual machine to any level and can get it down. And in cloud world, we know that it's pay per use model. So imagine if I'm using a virtual machine which is 4 core 16 GB RAM from morning 9 to 6, I will only pay for that for 9 or 10 hours for that amount. And if I scale down to 2 core, then in that case, I will only be charged for 2 core virtual machines. Pricing, we will go in detail in a last module. I'm just giving an example here. Very important point. See, this slide is mainly focused about getting started to a customer to adopt a cloud journey. So when we talk about capex versus opex, this is a very important point that you can talk, especially in this current situation of COVID-19. No customer would be interested in spending into capex. no customer will of course be ready to spend $1 million or $500,000 in hardware, whereas in the market it's so unstable. There is no certainty, and I don't know for how much time I'm going to use it. Cloud is the best option for them. And if you won't believe, even in this situation, the only business that is growing is cloud business, because really no customer want to invest on the on-premises hardware, whereas then they can pay on cloud, on Azure, on a monthly basis for the same services. And if they're not sure they're not going to use it, they can shut that down and they won't be paying for that. So capex spending on physical infrastructure, deduct the expense from your tax bill, and then there is a high upfront cost. Whereas in OPEX, we spend on services and the products that we used. We get the bill on monthly basis, on daily basis as well, and then there is no upfront cost in that. It's pay as you use. And subscription model, it's not new to us. I mean, since in childhood we are into subscription model. Our education is been into subscription. If you are on a rented home, your rent is on subscription. Your electricity is on subscription. Now we only have subscription in IT. Okay. Consumption-based model. I mean, we as an end user, we love this model. I mean, of course, imagine if Etisalat comes to us and Etisalat, say us that, you need to pay 1,000 dirhams every month, or Seva or Deva. We just no, it doesn't matter how much you use. You need to pay 1,000 dirhams or 2,000 dirhams upfront every month as a base charge, which will not be accepted. So in cloud, there is no upfront cost as such. Like you invest in hardware, you give an upfront cost and you buy the hardware. There is no upfront cost in cloud. It's pay for model, pay per use model. So as much as you spin up or spin down, you'll pay for that. No need to purchase and manage costly infrastructure. Ability to pay for additional resources as the need. As we discussed, that if I want to increase or decrease my resources, I can do that, and it will directly affect my bill. And there is an ability to stop paying for the resources that is no longer needed. So imagine if I want to spin up some dev and test environment for a new application that I'm testing. No need to buy dedicated hardware for that. You just need to spin up a dev and test lab, use the environment for maybe 15 days, a month, 2 months, shut down the environment, and you will only be paying for the amount that you have used. So types of cloud model that are available in Azure. So let's quickly get into that. So we have public cloud. So public cloud is something which is very common and which has been most used. Like imagine if you want me to give you an example of public cloud, it's like your Gmail, your Hotmail, your Yahoo, your Outlook, everything is hosted in the public cloud. So this is owned by a cloud service or a hosting provided. Like in our case, it's going to be Microsoft. It's provided resources and services to multiple organization and user. So if you're using Gmail or Outlook, multiple users will be using Outlook, and the services of that user will be available on the same server. But no two user can access each other database because of the security that is available. And then you can access via secure network connection. You can use it over internet, or you can have a SSL VPN connection in terms of Azure. So public cloud is a services that is available to public, but no two users, no two identity can be accessing each other resources because of the security and identity boundaries that they have. Just like your Google. I mean, in a Google server, in the same server, there may be emails of n number of users using the Gmail, but of course, no two user can access each other mailboxes because of the security concerns that they have. Same goes with Azure. There may be a data center. In that data center, we might have a server where in the same server, there may be a lot of virtual machines from different customers, but no two customers can access each other's virtual machine, and it is bounded by virtual networks and the identity protection that is available. Then we have private cloud. Private cloud is owned and operated by an organization that uses the cloud service. So imagine private cloud, we have a lot of terms of private cloud. Imagine you have a data center back in Abu Dhabi or in Dubai itself. That is going to be a cloud, but that is going to be a private cloud. No other vendor or no other customer will be able to provision a virtual machine there. Another example of private cloud would be Azure Stack. Azure Stack is like Azure in your data center, but the services will be using of cloud. All the services is gonna be more or less the services that are available in Azure, but it is gonna be your own data center. So Microsoft has tied up with vendors like Dell, Cisco, Huawei, and HP. They will build a predefined hardware for you. This hardware will be kept in your data center and with synced with Azure, but all the data will be locally available with extensively using the Azure services. But this Azure Stack is very expensive. It's more of an enterprise game that customer is using. A lot of government customers in UAE, in India, are using Azure Stack. And then we have hybrid. Hybrid is a cloud which is been the most demanded cloud in today's world, and most of the customers are going hybrid cloud, where it combines a public and a private cloud to allow the application to run. So for example, if I'm taking a DR, it's like a hybrid cloud. Most of the application are running on premises. In case of disaster, I'm switching over to cloud. In terms of taking a backup on Azure, or in terms of putting your domain controller on Azure, it's like a hybrid cloud with a combination of public and private both. So a public cloud, no capital expenditure to scale up. Application can be quickly provisioned, and organization pay for only what you use. For private cloud, organization have complete control over the resources. Organization have complete control over the security as well in terms of physical security. And hybrid cloud is flexible. Organization determine where to run the application, and organization control security compliance or legal requirement as well of the complete infrastructure and the data. Now let's quickly jump into the responsibility model. Uh, so left hand side, this is your on-premises, which is a private cloud where the storage, networking, compute, the VMOS, runtime, application, and data. Everything is being owned by the customer and managed by the customer. This is your on-premises traditional infrastructure. In cloud, the least that is being offered is infrastructure as a service, whereas in the compute network and storage, it's by default managed by the vendor, and the VM, OS, runtime, application, and data is being managed by the customer. So imagine if I want to promote an additional domain controller on Azure. So we have templates available on Azure, whereas then I just go to the virtual machine and click on the template, maybe a 2016, 2019, or 2012 VM, and an OS will be deployed. So the backend compute network and storage is being owned by Microsoft and will be managed. So if they want to replace the storage, replace the network, everything will be done by the vendor. We don't have an access, and we don't even look into that. Then the advanced version is available as platform as a service. So imagine if a customer want to spin up a website on Azure or website on premises, they first need to deploy a virtual machine, and then they spin up a website over that. Even in Azure, if they're taking infrastructure as a service, they need to spin up a virtual machine, and then they spin up the website, and they need to manage the VM and the website both. But in platform as a service, the website or SQL database, and there are many other services where you can just go ahead, spin up the website. The customer, the user or the organization will only manage the security and the backup of the website and the database that is available. The rest of the things like the runtime, the OS, the VM, the compute, and the storage is being managed by the vendor. And this is very important for us, correct? I mean, it's less headache for a customer. Imagine a company like soup.com, where they only want a website and a database. But in traditional infrastructure, they need to manage everything. But whereas in cloud, they only manage the website and database. The rest of the things is being managed by the vendor. That's the reason why we have organizations like Netflix or maybe Uber, Ola, Kareem. Everyone is on cloud because of the flexibility and the scalability that cloud offers. And then we have at the end software as a service, whereas when you only manage the data and the access. And the typical example of software as a service is going to be your Office 365. So it is very important for you to understand this model in order to make sure that what you offer to your customer. Imagine we have a customer where I just want to spin up a website for my internal user or for my external user. It might be not a good option for you to give them an infrastructure as a service, whereas a platform as a service can reduce some of the cost and the burden as well in terms of management and patching. So this is a typical example of IaaS, mostly cloud-based compute services, build pay-as-you-go IT infrastructure by renting servers, virtual machine storage network, and OS for the cloud providers, and then instance computing infrastructure provisioned and managed over the internet. And then we have platform as a service. So this is a set of IaaS, and then we have platform as a service, which provide environment for building, testing, and developing software application, helps to create application quickly without focusing on managing underlying infrastructure. And then we have software as a service, centrally hosted and managed software for end users. Users connect and use cloud-based apps over the internet, for example, Office 365 email and calendar. Okay. Okay, guys, so that's it from the first module, whereas in we get an overview of cloud. So what we learned so far, we learned the types of cloud, which is public, private, and hybrid. We learn the basic cloud concepts, and we got to understand what is IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Let's quickly jump over to the other session, other module, where we will talk more about the core services that are available in cloud. So give me a minute, let me quickly jump into my next module. Let me share my screen, just give me a minute. Okay, so guys, this is the second module, which is core Azure services. I hope you are able to see my screen. What we gonna understand, and this is very important because there are a lot of core Azure services that we're gonna cover in this module. So we need to we will understand and describe the core architectural component that are available on cloud, especially in Azure. We will understand and describe the core services, what is the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS services that are available. We will understand and describe the Azure solutions, and we will also describe the management to tool. So here, if you see the topics, one, you're going to understand the architecture of Azure, how Azure has been designed. Then on the architecture, you will build up some services in the products depending upon what is the requirement of a customer. Then you will deliver a solution to the customer, and once the solution is being delivered, you also need to understand how to manage that. Okay, so region. So let's talk about the region that are available in cloud. So region represents the collection of data centers. As I told you, Azure is available in more than 54 regions. In fact, the number of data centers in Azure is more than Google and Amazon both. So if you see Azure is available in more than 54 regions, so you need to choose the closest region. So imagine if I have customers in India and in UAE, so I can spin up the virtual machine, one in India, one in UAE, and so the user will access the closest virtual machine. And as we know, we have local data centers, one in Dubai and one in Abu Dhabi, after the data center in Gulf, there have been a very rapid cloud adoption, especially in this region. So it provides flexibility and scalability, preserve data resilience. Of course, a lot of customers who wanted the data not to leave the region, for them we have Dubai and Abu Dhabi. We will select the region. So we can select the region based on two aspects. The very first is, of course, data residency. And if that is not a concern, the prices depends as per region. So imagine you want to spin up a virtual machine maybe in Egypt, whereas then we don't have a data center in Egypt. So you can choose a virtual machine in UAE or in Europe or in South Africa based on the latency that the region is giving and the prices, because prices fluctuate as per region due to multiple situation. I mean, a virtual machine can price $100 in North Europe and can price $110 in UAE North. So it depends. So whenever you are sizing a BOQ or whenever you're giving a solution, you need to consider all these factors. We will deep dive into that in our last module. So we can select the region close to yours. Be aware of region deployment availability. Very important thing here to remember, all of the services are not available in all of the regions. You need to understand that. If you want me to give you an example before I forget, So there is a portal. Maybe we can go and check the portals at the end of the module. So there is a portal, Azure Service Availability by Region. If you Google that or if you Bing that, you will check, you will get a link, whereas in it will give you which all services are available in which region. So imagine you give a solution to a customer, whereas the service is not available in the region, then you might land up in a problem convincing the customer. So make sure before giving a solution, you check, like for example, the NVIDIA machines, the N series are not available in UAE North. So if you commit a customer that I'm going to give you an NVIDIA virtual machine, whereas it is not available, then there might going to be a problem. So you need to be absolute sure what you're delivering. Okay, so you need to be aware of the region, and there are global services that are regional dependent as well. So how the regions are paired? So each region is being paired with another region. So each region is paired with another region. Azure prefers at least 300 miles of separation between data centers is regional pair. In some cases, it's going to be less than 300 based on availability. Like for example, we have one in Dubai and one in Abu Dhabi. So that is the case. So some services provide automatic replication to the paired region. In an outage, recovery of one region is portrayed out of every pair, and Azure system update are rolled out to paired region sequentially, not at the same time. So of course, in Azure as well, we need to update the backend OS and the backend hardware. So Microsoft will not update both the hardware in both the regions at a time. It will be one at a time, and paired region are member of the same geography except Brazil. Brazil is an only country where we have a region paired with another like South Central US. In other cases, if you see, North Central is being tied up with South Central. Region is, we need to understand, region is not a different country. It's only a different region that Microsoft is talking about. Like East US is paired to West US. Central Canada with East Canada. North Europe with West US, West Europe. Central Germany to Germany Northeast. Brazil is an only region, whereas then there is no two data centers in the country. That's why it's been paired by South Central US. Geographies, so it's a discrete market that preserves the data residency and compliance boundary, typically contain two or more region and allow customer specific data resiliency and compliance need to keep the data in application, and then it categorized in Americas, Europe, Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa. Availability option, very important, that a lot of customers talked about what is an availability, what about high availability, what is an availability being promised by Microsoft. So one is your single VM. In single VM, Microsoft gives an SLA of 99.9% with the condition you have a premium storage attached to your VM. So when you're deploying a virtual machine, you get an option HDD or SSD, standard or premium. So if you choose premium storage, Microsoft can give you, Microsoft promise you an SLA of 99.9%. VMs in availability set gives you 99.95% of SLA, irrespective of which type of storage that you're using. Like protecting against failure with data center. And then we have two concepts here. What is availability set and what is availability zone? What is availability zone? We will look into the other slides that are coming. But just to remember you, in availability zone, if you provision, so when you're provisioning a virtual machine, it asks you that do you want to add it in availability set or in availability zone? When you keep it in availability zone, Microsoft will give you an SLA of 99.99, and then we have multi-region disaster recovery where regions are paired. So we can take a DR if center north UAE north is down, we can spin it up to central UAE. So there is one of the important concepts which is called as update domain and fall domain, which comes in terms of availability set. What do we mean by availability set? As we discussed, we have an availability set where we provision more than virtual machine to make sure that we have high availability of our VM. So consider, if you see the diagram, we have FD0, FD1 and FD2, which is fault domain 0, fault domain 1 and fault domain 2. We can have at the max 3 fault domain and up to 20 update domain. What do I mean by update domain? Update domain, the name itself suggests that if anything is updated, imagine I have three virtual machines. So one is in update 0 and UD1 and UD2. If you see, I will not update. Update is like if I'm updating the backend hardware or backend OS of that VM, I will not update all the VM at the same time. So Microsoft has designed or kept the data in such a way that all the VMs will not be updated at the same time. See, these are racks that are available. The FD0, FD1 and FD2, consider these as racks. So imagine on one rack, you can have multiple hardwares, multiple hypervisors, and in that hypervisor, you will have multiple virtual machines. So what Microsoft promises is like if I'm updating, I will not update a complete rack at the same time. I will update a set of VMs. So even if one update VM is going down for an update, you have another virtual machines. And fault domain itself, the name suggests that if anything is faulty, in that case, our rack can be faulty. So in this case, we have a maximum of 3 fault domain. So even if one rack is down, we have another 2 that is providing. So if you go to the definition, scheduled maintenance, performance or security updates are sequenced through an update domain. And in fault domain, it provides a physical separation of workload across different hardware in a data center. So when you are choosing a availability set, it will ask you that how many fault domain and update domain you want to keep the virtual machines into. And the maximum is 3 fault domains and 20 update domain. Availability zones as discussed in the other slide. What is availability zone? In the diagram, if you see, there is availability zone 1, 2, 3, and inside that zone we have multiple we have fault domain and update domain concept. So availability zone is basically a physical separation within the same Azure region. So you have an Azure region. Imagine we'll take an example of UAE North. In that UAE North, we will have an availability zone which will be isolated with this data center. Although it is available in the same region, but there is a physical separation within the same region. Takes availability set to a next level. So availability set is present with availability zone plus a layering of availability zone. So what does it mean? It means that it includes one or more data center equipped with independent power cooling and network. So availability zone will be available in the same UAE North region, but with a different power, different cooling and different networking concepts, which means even if the UAE North is down in any case, due to one of the reason, availability zone will be up because the networking, the power and the cable is altogether different for this availability zone. It acts as an isolation boundary, and if one availability zone goes down, the other will continue to work. Resource group. So let's get into bit more technical concepts of Azure. So let me give you an example. So same as on-premises, we have on-premises data center. I mean, on-premises when we have domain controllers and containers and OUs and virtual machines and users. So everything in a domain environment is called as object. Every resource is called as object. So imagine if you have a VM or a physical machine or a printer or a user or a GPU or anything, everything is called as an object. So in case of cloud, in case of Azure, everything is called as resource. It can be a VM, it can be any service, it can be your VNet, subnet, IP address, NIC card, your Power BI, everything will called a resource, and every resource will be in a part of a resource group. So resource group is basically a logical boundary where the resources are being kept for group policy purpose, for permission purpose. So what is a resource group? It's a container for multiple resources that shares the same life cycle. It's an aggregate resource into a single manageable unit, and every Azure resource must exist in one and only one resource group. No resource can be a part of more than one. For example, if I have a VM with the name A, that same VM cannot be a part of resource group A and B. It will only be a part of one resource group. Whereas if you apply a policy called as RBAC in a resource group A, it will inherit to all the resources that are available. And it is a secure at a resource group or using RBAC role that has been available. Resource group manager, so let me quickly minimize this part. Okay, so resource group manager is a management layer that enables you to create and update and delete resources in an Azure subscription. So basically you will create a management group, whereas in you will get an availability. So imagine if you see the right hand side, the hierarchy, we have a management group at the top. The sign of key is basically a sign of your tenant, not a tenant but a management group that you have. In that, with the same management group, you can manage multiple subscriptions. So I won't go in detail, but just let me give you an example. What do you mean by tenant? So basically a tenant is an Azure tenant that you have, whereas in all the subscription and the resources will reside inside a tenant. So if you're using Office 365 or Dynamics 365, you already have an Azure tenant and you already have an Azure AD. In Office 365, you get a basic Azure AD where you sync all the users. So we will create an Azure a management group on a in one tenant. You can have multiple subscription. Maybe you can have 10 subscription for Azure itself, one for like Redington. Redington have different department. Redington have value, volume, and telco. So Redington and all three are isolated each other. But I don't want that all three will be different from each other. Uh, so in this case, what I do is I create a management group. What in this case, I will create a management group, and then inside that management group, I will create all the subscriptions. I can have 3-4 subscription, and from one single management group, which will be an owner or a global admin in our case, will manage all the subscription and all the resources on all the resources beneath that. So you can create, configure, and manage and delete the resources and resource group. You can organize the resource, you can control access, and you can automate using different tools. So whenever you created a subscription, it is very important for us to understand that we create a management group, and then we give permissions accordingly. What are the core services and products of Azure? So this is very important to understand. So let's start with compute. So Azure Compute is a set of services which you see on the right hand side, where your virtual machines, your virtual machine skill set, your functions app, your app service, your Kubernetes, your availability set, your disk, and many other things. When you go to the Azure portal and when you spin up new services, you'll get an option compute, and you'll see the checklist that is available. So compute is basically an on-demand compute services for running cloud-based application. It provides compute resources such as disk, memory, networking, OS. It makes resources available in minutes and in seconds, and then lots of demand services and in pay-per use. Our example is VMs, skill set, Azure services, which is PaaS, which is app services, and then we have functions, which performs a compute action based on event. We will quickly do a demo for a compute services. So if you want me to check, I will quickly log into my Azure subscription. I am not sure if I have already shared this. So let me. So in this case, so this is my Azure subscription, guys, by the way. So when I go to all services, in the left hand side, I'll see compute. And once I click on compute, these are the services that are available in compute. I'll click on virtual machines. These are the set of virtual machines that are available. I'll click on add. Once I click on add, it will ask, I told you, multiple subscriptions. So in our case, I have 2 subscriptions. You have, and I'm a global admin for both the subscriptions. So I can choose whichever subscription I want. I choose this one. Resource group, I told you, every resource. So VM is a resource which will be a part of resource group. I can either choose one of those, or I can create a new resource group. In our case, I'll say test. I'm not going to create anything for now. So test, I said okay. Virtual machine name, I said VM 001. Region, UE North, or maybe I will choose West Europe. Which VM you want to spin up? Is it a Linux or Windows or Ubuntu, or I can browse the images? Imagine I want Citrix based VM. I'll click on Citrix and I can choose any of the. So the templates will be with Citrix. I want FortiGate. If I want FortiGate, I'll get FortiGate set up. So imagine if I choose FortiGate and then I can choose the username and password, and then I'll just click go ahead and review and create. So this is how you'll create the compute resources. Containers. So very important and very in-depth concepts of containers that are available in cloud. And so basically containers are a virtualization environment. So if you want me to give you a definition, is it's a virtualization inside virtualization. So, but like unlike your virtual machines, you do not manage the OS. So imagine even if you are a VM, even if you are you have a Hyper-V or a VMware environment and you do the virtualization concept, you manage the OS as well. But containers is a lightweight containers that are designed to create and scale out, whereas in you only manage your specific container, not the complete OS as well. So this is a PaaS offering that is available in Azure, and my Azure has its own container, which is Azure Kubernetes services. If you see my screen, if you want to check the containers options that are available, so I will just click on no here. So if you see Kubernetes services are available here, I will just go ahead. I don't have container for now. I'll just click on add. Once I click on add, it will give me the cluster name, the region, which version, any DNS that you prefer, what size of container, and then I can go ahead and create the container here. Network services, another basic and important concepts. So we have Azure VNets. Azure VNet is basically Azure VNet is basically a network that provides your secure communication between Azure resources. So Azure VNet is basically as same as your on-premises VNet, where you have a network, you will have a IP addresses, we have VNet, we have subnet, and it's a secure communication between different Azure. So you have any resources that are available in the same VNet will by default communicate to each other securely. Then we have load balancers. Load balancers are same as your on-premises load balancer, whereas you can put multiple websites or web app behind a load balancer, and the user will first hit the load balancer and the traffic will route to any of the VM based on that is available and least loaded. Then we have VPN gateway. It's same as your on-premises gateway, whereas then you can connect from your on-premises to Azure on a gateway. It's a platform managed scalably and highly available application in a delivery controller. Then we have application gateway. Application gateway is similar to load balancer, but application gateway works on layer 7, whereas in load balancer works on layer 4. So application gateway will manage and route your traffic to an application with more features like SSL offloading, DDoS attack protection, and many other features that are available. And then we have CDN. What is CDN? CDN is basically a distributed network that is efficiently deliver web content. So imagine I have a website and my users are accessing the website globally, and my website is hosted in UAE. In other regions, I will have CDN, content delivery network, whereas in the most access data will be cached in the CDN, and the user will access the data from the local CDN rather coming to UAE and getting access to the data. Okay, so let's quickly go ahead and create a VNet. So again, I'll go to all services. I'll click on VNet. Once again, it's not compute. I'll go to all. I'll click on virtual network. I have many VNets. I'll click on add. I have to create one more. Again, resource group, resources, then name. I will give any name, maybe test 1 2 test VNet. Region, then IP addressing. It will ask me what is an IP address, IP4 address. This is currently, by default, it took this subnet based on what is available in my range, but you can change it and you can go ahead and create a VNet in this case. And after that, Azure data center category, Azure data category. So in Azure, we have structure, we have semi-structure, and then we have unstructured data. So what is a structured data? So structured data is a data which have schema, like your AD, your SQL database, and everything that comes into data, structured data. Then we have semi-structured data, and it has a Hawk schema with less organization feel and properties. Like for example, it's a non-rational data like NoSQL. And then at the end, we have structured data, unstructured data, just like your disk. Your disk is unstructured. Your GPGs, your PDFs, your blobs, your images, your videos, everything comes under unstructured data. And then Azure storage services, we have in IaaS, we have disk and files. In disk, we have premium, we have standard, we have persistent and non-persistent disk. And then we have files, just as your on-premises file structure, which be accessed by SMB, and you can access from anywhere and you can access securely. And then in PaaS, we have container with blob, page blob, append blob. Then you have table with NoSQL database that is available, and then we have queue storage for retrieve message and high scalability. So let's quickly go ahead and create a storage account as well. So I'll just go to Azure portal. I'll click on storage. I'll click on storage here. I'll click on add. Here I will go ahead and do the same region, same stuff, and I'll go ahead and create. But what I wanted to show you is I'll go to any of the storage account that I'm creating. I'll go to any of the storage account, and then here I will give you that, do you want to create a container or a file or share a table or queue storage? This is an area where you can specify, and here is where you can specify CDN. If you want to add any CDN location for the storage, you can go ahead and create it. And if you want to create any of the file share, you can go ahead and create it here. And then database services, we have Azure Cosmos DB, which is a globally distributed database services that is enable you to elastically and independent scale. Then we have Azure SQL database. This is not new for us. And there is a tool called as Azure Database Migration. With the help of tool, you can just go ahead and move your database from on-premises to Azure. Again, quickly go through the SQL database. If you are here, I will go ahead. I will click on SQL, and this is my SQL database. I currently don't have any. I'll click on add, and this make you remember this is going to be a platform as a service instance, whereas you only get an access to your SQL database and you own it and you manage the security and backup of SQL. Everything else will be managed by the vendor. I will click a database name. Make sure this is going to be unique, because when we click on the database name, then it will ask that do you want to go ahead and click database server. Currently I don't have. I have to create a database server. I'll click on create. So this is going to be unique. If you see test 1 2 3, this is not unique because the name is, because this is globally accessible. So if I'll go test Redington 1 2 3, this is available globally. I will give admin name, password, everything, and I am not going to create it, but this is how you create Azure database. And then once you create a database, you'll get a database instance where you can go ahead and access your database. Azure Marketplace. Azure Marketplace is same as your Gmail or your Google Marketplace, Android Marketplace, or your iOS Marketplace, whereas then you have more than 10,000 products that are available. So whenever I was choosing the FortiGate and Citrix VM, that I was taking the images from the marketplace. You as an ISV or you as a solution provider can build your own marketplace and you can publish it to Azure. So your customers can directly go ahead and buy the services from the Azure Marketplace. There are few criteria which you need to meet, after which Microsoft will publish your services in the Azure Marketplace, and the customer will just browse the marketplace and access it. You just need to go ahead and search for marketplace and in Google, and you will get the marketplace option. Solutions, we have IoT available, IoT Central, IoT Hub that is available. We have big data and analytics. Azure has its own Azure SQL data warehousing, which is a NoSQL. Then we have HD Insight, which is a fully managed open source analytics services for an enterprise customer. And then we have a data lake. Azure. This is more of an enterprise game, which is an analytic job services that is available for big data. Then we have AI. Azure has Azure Machine Learning Services. And then we have a Studio Azure for collaboration. For serverless computing means you don't need any server at the back end to manage it. So we have Azure Functions. It's basically a code that is running on the services with not an underlying platform infrastructure. You just Azure Functions is basically an automation or a serverless computing, whereas then you give them some command and then it will execute once the event happen. And then we have a logic app. It's basically a cloud service that helps you to automate and orchestrate a task, a business process, or a workflow whenever required. And then we have an event grid, uh, which is a fully managed intelligent event routine services that is available for a consumption model. So you can choose any one of them based on the requirement that you have. Most of them, all three of them, do somewhere or the similar job. You need to choose the base which you need to choose the one which suits your organization and which suits your solution. Then we have DevOps. This is not a new term for anyone. Azure has its own DevOps. It provides a development collaboration tool for creating a DevOps environment. And then we have Azure Dev and Test Labs, which is a different service altogether. If you go to Azure, if you create Dev and Test Labs, we will be able to create a new service where you can move the workloads from production to development and from development to production anytime based on your requirement. Then we have Azure App Service, guys. Let's quickly go ahead and create an app service, which we discussed as platform as a service that is available. So I'll just click on app service. I want to spin up an application. I click on add. As soon as I click on add, the same part, subscription, resource group, web app, I will give again test 123 Redington. And then you want to put it on code or Docker. What is the runtime, which base runtime you need? And then once I click it, I will just go ahead and review and create. I have not specified anything else. Microsoft will take care of everything, and then my web app will be ready within seconds. So once I go ahead and once my web app is created, I'll quickly show it to you. It is currently doing some validation. So the validation succeeded. I will go ahead and create. It will take a while to create. It's initializing my deployment. Once this is created, my website is ready. I just need to go ahead and access, and my website will be ready to access. Okay, guys, let's resume in 5 minutes once my website is once my website is live. So guys, just let's hold on for 2 minutes till the time this operation is complete, and then we will resume here. Okay, so as you see, our deployment is completed as successful. So I'll just go ahead to I'll click on resource. So my test web app is created. I'll click on browse. And if you see, my website is ready. So if you saw that, I was able to create my website within a span of 5 minutes or even less than that. So I can browse, I can stop. This is my URL. And then I can hand it over to my deployment team that go ahead and deploy your website in whichever platform you want to deploy. So this is how quick it is. Okay, so let's go back. What are the management tools that are available? You can access Azure via portal, via PowerShell, via CLI. You have a Cloud Shell, you have a mobile app, and you also have a REST API. You can use one of the tool to manage your Azure portal and services. Azure Advisor is basically a free service that is available from Microsoft. What it actually does is analyze your deployment. it will check what have you have deployed and what is the recommendation. So it will give you the high availability recommendation, it will give you security, performance, and cost recommendation. If you want me to give you an example of cost, imagine you have 3 virtual machines that you're using from last 6 months, and you have not even used a compute of 10% out of the total that has been deployed. What Azure Advisor will do, Azure Advisor will say that this virtual machine is good to scale down. Why are you paying more for that virtual machine, whereas you can scale down easily? Same goes with performance security. Imagine you have couple of ports open that are not required. Azure Security will give you a recommendation that you block the port because this is a high risk port. And then the same way it will give you the advisor as per availability and as per performance. Okay, so guys, that's it. I believe it was very interesting and very helpful slide for you. Of course, we have other 2 sessions, we have other 2 modules that needs to be covered. But when it comes to getting started with Azure, these 2 modules should be enough for you to get started and get to know the basic services. Now, let's quickly jump in to our module number 3. And in this module, we will talk more about security and compliance. I will quickly share my screen for this. Security is a concern everywhere. So now a lot of customers ask that if I put my data on cloud, how secure it is. So let's quickly get into that. How Microsoft manages. So what you learn in this module is you need to understand you will understand what is a secure network connectivity. You'll understand the identity services, the tools, how Microsoft is governance, putting Azure governance into place, how Microsoft is monitoring, and what are the compliance and data protection standards in Azure. So this is a hierarchy where this is your physical security, your identity access, your perimeter, network, compute, application, and data. This is how an application has been published or a data has been published. So this is a layered approach that you need to take as a end user or as a customer, as a partner for the services that you are responsible for. What do I mean by that is the services that you manage. If you remember the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS slide, the services that you own, you manage, you are responsible for that services. So imagine if you're taking a PaaS environment, you are not responsible for backend security, for the compute, for the storage, even for the OS, because you don't handle it. But in terms of IaaS, you are responsible for OS and the data security. So this is the shared responsibility as we discussed. This is your on-premises where everything is being managed by customer, but in IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, this is Microsoft responsibility and this is customer's responsibility. We have Azure Firewall. Azure Firewall is an next generation firewall that is available for you to secure. It is a highly available firewall with unrestricted cloud scalability, and then uses Azure Monitor logging for all the services that are available. And then we also have WAF, which is Web Application Firewall, which you can go ahead and deploy for your security purposes. Then we have Azure DDoS protection. Like your DDoS attacks, it takes care of the DDoS attacks, which is sanitize the unwanted network traffic. And then the basic Azure services, and then it also gives you the capabilities over it. Quickly go into the other one. Then we have application security group, where you can bundle more than 2 to 3 virtual machines. You can put it into an app and then you can add it as a security group. Another important concept that we need to talk about is network security group that we will talk about. So we have a perimeter layer, and then we have a network layer where we bound our security. And the services that are available, we have Azure AD. We have authentication and authorization. Authentication is basically who all you want to authenticate, and authorization is basically who you want to give the access. So we have an Azure AD, which gives SSO, which gives authentication, B2B, B2C, and device management. We can have MFA. And then for securing, we have Azure Security Center. It's a service that is available, which will give you all the security practices and the security that is available. And then this is how security center works. It detect, access, diagnose, stabilize, and then it will close the issue. And then we have key vault, where it keep all the secret management keys. It will keep all the certificate management, and then it will keep the HSM. And then we have Azure Information Protection. This is basically a protection for your documents, which is automatically using rules by condition, manually by user, and combine automatic and manual method to guide by recommendation. And then we have governance Azure policies. We can define policies for the resources. And then we have policy initiatives that has been taken care. Then we have RBAC, another important perimeter. RBAC is basically a fine-grained access management that is being provided. So we have Azure AD. Then on the left-hand side, we have users, application groups, and then we have Azure subscription, and we can give RBAC for the users on and the application on a subscription, on a resource group level, or on a resource level as well. And we have resource lock. Resource lock is basically an additional security feature, whereas you can give that no one can delete the resources. So even if the user can go ahead and want to delete it, if there is a lock, he won't be able to go ahead and delete it. And then for monitoring, we have tags. We can tag each resources to a specific department or specific entity. So you will get it know that what is the cost and other things. And then we have Azure Monitor, which monitors your logs, your metrics, and it will collect and give you data. And then we have Service Health, which will give you a status of services and which will keep you up to date. And for compliance, guys, Microsoft has done certification. You have a portal altogether, which all areas Microsoft has done a certification. So you can show it to customer. Microsoft is compliant for more than 50 certified, whereas from UAE, from USA, from China, to make sure that the data is compliant. I'm sorry, let me quickly go back to that. And then we have Azure government services that are available for government, especially for US, it's a different data center. And then for China, in Microsoft has tied up with China 21 via net, which is a service provider to give all the services available, but that is only available for China customer. That's it, guys. So let's quickly jump into our last module, which is pricing and sizing, and then we will close. And after this session, as discussed, you're going to be an Azure fundamental certified after the certification is done, and these modules are enough for you to get you certified. So what we'll learn in this module is the subscription and the management group, how to manage and reduce your cost, what are the support options, what are the SLAs, and what are the lifetime cycle of Azure. So subscription, as we already know, we have an Azure account and we can have multiple subscription within an Azure account. You can have test production, you can have entities and other types of subscription that you can define. What types of options are available? One is, if you see here, it's a free account. Whenever you sign in as an end customer to Microsoft, you get 12 months free for the services free, and you get $200 credit, and 25 plus basic services will always be free on Azure. Management group, we already discussed about this. And then pricing, a customer can buy Azure via an enterprise account agreement, or via a web direct, with a credit card, or a CSP, where we come into picture as Redington as a distributor and you as a partner. What are the factors affecting the services? Resource type, what all resources you're deploying, which all services you're deploying, and which all location you're taking. As I discussed, the prices changes as per location. Zone for bandwidth, because in Azure, incoming is free and outgoing is chargeable. What do I mean by that is, whichever services, whatever data goes inside Azure is free, and whatever data gets out of Azure is chargeable. We have Azure pricing calculator, where I'll give you a short demo of the pricing calculator, whereas you just search for your service and then you'll get the prices. And then we have TCO. There is a portal called as Azure TCO, which will give you the total cost of ownership of what all services you're using and how much you're going to pay on Azure and how much you're paying on premises. And then how to minimize the cost. You need to check the performance. You need to perform a TCO. You need to monitor. You need to check the usage. You need to choose the low cost location you need to keep the up to date of the latest Azure customers subscription offer, and then you need to apply. Then we have Azure Cost Management for enterprise customers, not for CSP. In CSP, we have Cloud-in, and it's same. You get reporting, data enrichment, budget, alerting, and recommendations. And then support. We have support. We have basic, developer, standard, professional, direct. In CSP, all the support has been given by Redington, and you don't need to pay for that. But in enterprise or in web direct, customer pay for support as well. Then we have knowledge center. There's a portal called as Azure Knowledge Center where we get all the knowledge available to the services and the SLA. We have a portal for Azure SLA which will give you that in which terms what SLA Microsoft is going to perform. So as per 99.9% SLA for a VM, Microsoft is giving you like 8.76 hours of downtime a year. With 99.95, it's 4.38 hours a year, and then with 99.99, it's 52.56 hours of minutes of downtime, less than a year's downtime in a year. And there is a composite SLA. So imagine if you're using a website with 99.95 and a SQL database with 99.99, you multiply both and you get a composite SLA as an average. And then you get ASL. So service life cycle, we have public and private preview for Microsoft. Private preview, which means services available for few customers for testing, and public preview is like services available for all the customers but for testing purpose, because there won't be any support for the services. There is a portal for accessing the preview, which is called as preview.portal.azure.com to access the preview feature. And this is an availability. A new services, when it is approved, it is activated, it is resolved, it is closed, and then it goes in a reverse order. That's it, guys, from Azure. I think we have done all modules, and as this was basic, I just thought of going through a bit faster because just was the basic features which most of them would be aware. So thank you so much for joining today, and we will be having another session, and it's on 15th, and you might be receiving an invite for that as well, whereas then we will try to cover a different topic which will give you more insights about Azure. So thank you so much, and stay safe and have a good day ahead. Bye-bye.
Guys, if you have any questions, you can just drop it in the chat box.
Team, you can ask the questions now, or I think most of them you have my contact, my email address. Feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have any customers or if you want any solution. Feel free to reach out. Whereas then we can design, we can discover, and we can give a solution. We can design the BOQ, and we can help you in other stuff, anything related to Azure.
Shoaib, if you can drop your email ID and contact number in the chat box.
I will do that right away, Julian. Thanks. So guys, that's my email address, and that's my phone number.
Thank you so much, Shoaib, for conducting the session, and thank you all for attending the session.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Take care.